For those that might want Spanish language translation, I'll ask our Spanish language translator to unmute and provide instruction, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Giovanna Wormsbecker, and I'll be your Spanish interpreter today. In order to provide language access, this meeting will have simultaneous interpretation from English to Spanish. Please note that the translation globe will not appear until after I've read through all language instructions. If you're bilingual, you do not have to click anything. If you're not bilingual, you will have to select the language that you speak in order to hear the interpretation. If you're on a laptop or a desktop, you will see a globe at the bottom right of your screen. Please click on the globe icon that says interpretation and select English. If you're on an iPad or a similar device, locate the three-dot menu on the upper right and select language interpretation and then select English. When it's your turn to speak, please remember to be loud and clear and speak at a moderate pace, as the interpreter will be interpreting simultaneously into the other language. Buenas noches a todos, me llamo Giovanna Wormsbecker y voy a ser su intérprete durante esta reunión. El globo de instrucción no va a aparecer hasta que se hayan leído todas las instrucciones en los dos idiomas. Si usted es bilingüe, no tiene que presionar nada. Si usted no es bilingüe, tendrá que elegir su idioma para escuchar la interpretación. Si está utilizando una computadora, verá un icono en la parte inferior de su pantalla a la derecha en forma de globo que dice interpretación. Haga clic y seleccione español. Si está usando un iPad o teléfono, localice el menú de 3 puntos que aparece arriba a la derecha. Haga clic en interpretación de idiomas y elija español. Cuando sea su turno de hablar, por favor recuerde hablar con voz fuerte y clara a un paso moderado, ya que el intérprete estará interpretando simultáneamente el otro idioma. Gracias. Thank you.
All right, I believe we can begin the meeting. So I'm going to be talking about National Core Indicators, also known as NCI. So what is NCI? NCI is a standardized survey used by the Department of Developmental Services, also known as DDS, to assess performance. It is a series of questions about an individual's life, their services, and their community. The survey is given to clients and their families to measure their overall satisfaction with the service and supports that they receive. It is administered by the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. They conduct the survey, and the NCI is a survey that's used in multiple states. Why is it important? The results help us to see areas that we're doing well in, and it highlights areas that we can use some improvement. After today's public meeting, we will be submitting a plan to the Department of Developmental Services by January the 16th. And in that letter, we will talk about what we've learned about our NCI data and how we plan to focus on improving the areas that need improvement. The data itself represents feedback from the people we serve and their families. How satisfied are they with our services and supports? And how did we do? This is the why behind today's meeting. The statute requires each regional center to present NCI data at a board meeting. So that's what we're doing. We value the input from our community. As we go through the presentation, please put your comments in the chat, or you can email us directly at ncifeedback@altaregional.org. There are 4 different types of surveys. This fiscal year 2021 focused on the adult in-person survey, and that is conducted face-to-face with individuals who are 18 years of age or older and who receive at least one service from the regional center, in addition to case management. The other surveys are child and family, adult family, and the family guardian survey. Again, right now we're going to be focusing on the adult in-person survey. This particular slide represents the categories from which questions were derived. This is our very first presentation on NCI data, and each year we look forward to coming back to present what we've learned from examining the data. There's over 100 questions and 400 response options to review. The survey results themselves are posted on our website, and they're tabulated by regional center. Percentage results that were 5% above the statewide average are green, and percentage results that are 5% below are red. This is if you were actually looking at the survey on our website. All right, and I'm going to explain the comparison data. So the statute requires ALTA to assess the comparative performance of regional center and compare them to the previous survey's year's results and the statewide average. We've taken it one step further to compare our performance with our neighboring regional centers and regional centers of similar size. At this time, I'm going to introduce Herman Kothi. He is our training manager. He's going to kick off the presentation with the first category of access.
Thank you, Michelle. So we are about to jump into a deep dive into some data. I hope everyone enjoys looking at graphs. We've done our best to make it visually understandable. As Michelle pointed out, there are a lot of data points in this information, a lot of valuable information we can learn from. So in the category of access, there were 25 measures, 25 potential responses that clients could provide when asked the questions about their community access. And ALTA did not stand out above or below the statewide average in any of those 25 measures. Not necessarily a great thing, not necessarily a bad thing, but we want to share with you, even though there's no significant outlier in this measure, what one example of a question pertaining to access might have looked like. So clients were asked, are you able to get places when you want to do something outside your home, like going out to see friends, entertainment, or to do something fun? ALTA clients responded yes. 82%. And the statewide average was 84%. So there was only a difference of 2%, which wasn't considered significant, but those were the types of questions that clients were asked pertaining to the broad category of access. We didn't do a deep dive into this again because there weren't any outliers. Under the broad category of, there were 23 different response options, and ALTA scored above 5% of the statewide average in 3 of the 23 and below the statewide average in 8 of the 23. So we want to provide an example of what each one of those might look like. So in a category where ALTA performed above the statewide average, do you have a best friend or someone you are really close to? Our clients in the ALTA catchment area responded yes, 75% of the time, compared to the statewide average of 69%, 6% above the statewide average in the important category of having a best friend. By comparison, can you see your friends when you want to? During this survey period, unfortunately, our clients responded yes, only 59% of the time, whereas the statewide average was 64%. We would want our clients to be able to see their friends as often as they like. Now, tying this into things that we'd like to be able to incorporate into activities to improve outcomes for the coming year, we do want to point out that with the return of social recreational services and ALTA's outreach efforts to promote the availability of that, we're hopeful that getting our clients opportunities to engage with family and friends in recreational activities might enhance some of these outcomes. Additionally, as Michelle mentioned, even though our charge is to compare Alta's performance with statewide averages and prior year's data. And by the way, prior year's data, people were able to see friends more frequently. Keep in mind that this survey was conducted likely during the COVID pandemic when many people's lives were impacted by shutdowns and lack of accessibility to different resources. So what we also wanted to do was examine how Alta compared to some of our neighboring regional centers in Northern California. We have a handful of them, so we just sort of averaged their outcomes to compare ours against theirs. We also wanted to compare our data against similar size regional centers, being one of the larger regional centers in the state. So we looked at the two partners who share a large client population. And in the same question, can you see your friends when you want to, where Alta ranked with 59% compared to the statewide average. Our Northern California neighbors also had 64%, and the large regional centers, San Diego Regional Center and North Los Angeles County Regional Center had 63% and 60% in response to that. So everybody's right within that same range, but Alta is slightly lower by comparison. So again, our hope is that our clients, as we move forward, will be able to have greater access to seeing family and friends. Under the category of rights and respect, there were 45 different measures that were examined. Alta scored above 5% of the statewide average in 5 out of 45 of those. There were 8 out of 45 where there was potential for improvement. Looking at some of the specific questions that were asked under that category, have you ever participated in a self-advocacy group meeting, conference, or event? Our clients had significantly higher opportunity for that, with a response rate of 25% saying yes, compared to the statewide average of 19%, and even lower than that for a statewide average. So it's nice to see that the trend is that there's greater opportunity for our clients to be included in participating in self-advocacy events. Again, by contrast, areas where Alta could potentially improve, one of the questions that was asked, can you lock your bedroom if you want to? And it was considered preferable if people could lock their bedrooms where they wanted to. And Alta clients responded yes 41% of the time, compared to the statewide average of 48%. So we'd like our clients to have greater opportunity to exercise their rights in that regard. And some of the solutions that we think might impact outcomes for the future are the implementation of the home and community-based waiver final rule that requires choice, rights, freedoms in different settings, including care home settings. Some of the clients who were surveyed do reside in care home settings. So there's a belief that we might see some improvement in that going forward. Comparing rights and respect across those other categories of similar sized regional centers and neighboring regional centers. Again, where Alta was coming in at 41%, clients responded saying yes, and the statewide average being 48%. Our neighboring Northern California regional centers also had response rates at 49%. And then interestingly, looking at the two larger regional centers, one was on par with us with about 41%. One was actually on par with the state average at 48%. So not a crazy deviation or variance, but interesting that there is variance across regional centers with regard to this measure. Wellness, looking at clients' wellness, Alta scored above 5% of the statewide average in 2 out of 10, and there were no measures where we scored below. So this is one where we get to give ourselves a pat on the back. There weren't any areas where we were identified as being an outlier, needing to make improvement, although we always continuously strive for improvement. but just examining where we did well in this category. One of the questions, how many times per week do you do physical activity or exercise that makes the muscles in your arms, legs, back, and or chest work hard, like lifting weights, push-ups, sit-ups, manual labor, physical therapy, etc.? Our clients, looking at responses to this, said that 5 times or more a week, 19% of our clients are exercising. That's great that they're getting that opportunity. They're staying fit. And compared to the statewide of 12%. Now, sadly, when we look back 3 years ago, everybody was doing a lot better job of exercising. So, thank you. Yeah, I myself am probably included in this category. So, understandably, access, COVID, being cooped up. Areas. We also think that opportunities to enhance physical activity, exercise engagement could also be addressed by access to social and recreational activities. This next measure is an interesting one, and I'm not going to be dismissive of what the data was reporting to us, but I do want everybody to consider it with an open mind. So with the 13 measures looking at medications administered or taken by clients, Alta had 0 out of 3 where we were above the statewide average, 4 where there were identified areas of improvement. And when we look at the question specifically that was asked where Alta scored below the statewide average, the question was, takes at least one medication, not multiple, just one medication for behavioral challenges or mood disorder. And Alta had 42% of our clients responding in the affirmative. Yes, they do take one medication, compared to the statewide average of only 32%. By categorizing this, and by the way, we did not choose the categories. The data was presented to us in a form that labeled things as either positive or negative, depending on the responses. It was considered negative if someone was taking a medication for behavior challenge or mood disorder. My personal opinion on the matter, having worked on our mental health services committee and supporting clients who might have co-occurring conditions in addition to a developmental disability, and what my knowledge of the potential benefits of psychopharmacological interventions for people who are experiencing mental health disorders, is that medication isn't necessarily a bad thing. And our management team was introduced to a training by our behavior specialist, our autism specialist, Mary Rettenhouse. So I know we're looking at alternative, least restrictive options before jumping to chemical interventions. But I wouldn't necessarily think this would be something we'd want to focus a whole lot of energy on changing the data, changing the outcome. What I think the solution is a very individualized, person-centered approach to determine that if someone is prescribed a medication, that it is a result of having tried these restrictive alternatives, behavioral intervention, and that we're not just jumping to chemically restrain people or misuse or polypharmacy. So I'll stop there on that, but we did also examine that across other regional centers of similar size and neighbors to see what their data looked like compared to the statewide. And our neighboring regional centers in the north were more on par with the state, with 32% of their clients taking one or more medication. The larger regional centers also below where Alta's at, 31% and 40% respectively, with respondents saying they're taking at least one medication. Health measures. In this category, Alta had 2 out of 39 measures that were identified as being above the statewide average at a rate of 5%. 6 out of those 39 measures were below, so some opportunity for improvement with regard to health. The data indicated that Alta clients had some positive outcomes with regard to screenings for colorectal and mammograms. But if you do a real deep dive, being fully transparent, some of those positive scores where we were 5% above the statewide average were in timeframes that were within the last 3 years, within the last 5 years, whereas ideally we want to be striving to have clients accessing these things as frequently as needed, maybe more often. Health, the question of when was his or her last complete annual physical exam. We would hope that everybody has the opportunity to see their primary medical professional annually. Alta, 57% said yes to having been able to see their doctor within the last year, compared to the statewide average of 65%. So what we need to do in this area to ensure our clients are getting access to the medical resources they need is, I think, advocacy and education, training, encouragement, that people make an effort to see their doctor. Again, perhaps appointments were difficult to schedule during COVID. Many doctors got backlogged, closed their doors, and we don't know the comparison of the degree to which Alta's catchment area was impacted more so by COVID restrictions than others. Looking at community participation. By the way, looking at Northern California regional centers and centers of similar size on the same category of access or last physical exam. Our neighboring regional centers did fairly well, with 67% of their clients having been able to see a doctor in the last year. And the large regional centers also did fairly well, with 64 and 69%. So Alta being 5% or more below, certainly something we want to make sure we're attentive to going forward in connecting with our clients and ensuring they're getting access. Community participation. 35 different measures that were possible responses in the questions that were asked in this category. Alta, again in this category, only did well. There were only measures where we were above 5% of the statewide average, none where we fell below. So I don't have a graphic representation of anything reflecting areas for improvement. But just to show you where we were doing well in that category and the type of questions that asked with regard to community participation. Do you participate as a member of community groups in your community? Something we want our clients to be part of, integrated, part of our vision, respected, valued members of their communities. The percent responding yes, and Alta's catchment area, 26%, compared to the statewide average of 19%. So greater than 5%, better than average. Certainly room for improvement, 26%. We'd like to see that number grow. But the trend is that we're increasing community participation. And again, with things like social recreational services returning as available options for our clients to access, we hope to see that correlate to increased community participation. And at this point, where I get to introduce Jennifer Bloom, Associate Client Services Director, who will take us through the second half of the NCI data for this survey.
Okay, thank you. Follow your flow, Herman. Okay, so employment and day program is the next category that we're looking at. And Alta was 5% or above the statewide average in 6 out of the 8 measures and 0 out of 8 below. So let's take a closer look at that. And the question here is, do you take classes, training, or do something to help you get a job, a better job, or do better at the job you have now? And 33% responded yes. And statewide, it was a 25% as yes. Let's see, I'm looking to see if we have the comparisons. Not on this measure, I don't think. Okay, so we're pleased with this outcome, but of course, like everything, 33% could be improved. We would love to see, through person-centered planning initiatives and just education and advocacy, we'd love to see these percentages increase. And that's going to be one of our many goals for this next time. Safety. So we do have some interesting ones. This is kind of like, I have a little bit of Herman's philosophy on this one compared to the medication question. But this one is around safety. And we had 0 out of 9 responses that were above the statewide average and just 1 that was below. So we could improve in this area. But the question is, are there places where you feel afraid or scared? And so I thought a lot about this, and though below would be considered better here, I'm also thinking about our emotions that we all have as humans, and that it's normal to feel scared in some settings. So, it's of note to say that the data didn't reflect fear in the areas of home, day program, work, or neighborhood. The category where people said they expressed they felt afraid or scared was other. So we don't really know what that is. And it would be interesting just to kind of dive into that a little bit more, but also recognize that we're all fearful at sometimes in some settings. So I think we'd like to examine that more deeply. Compared to our neighbors were at 15%, where our clients said they felt afraid or scared, and our larger regional centers were at 14 and 15%. And again, so that's right in line with the statewide average. Satisfaction. So we had 0 out of 5 responses where we were above the statewide average in the category of satisfaction, and 4 out of 35 where we were below. So this is another category where lower would be better, but we want to also explore what this could mean. The question is, would you like to live somewhere else? So sure, I mean, maybe there's probably lots of us who would like to live somewhere else. Maybe I'd like to live by the beach, or I'd like to live in a different location. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't exude just general unhappiness. So that's just something that we'd like to explore about, what this could mean. I think it also could mean that our clients have aspirations and dreams and wishes for something different for themselves in the future. So I don't see that necessarily as negative, but some of the planned activities that we have are around our housing initiatives. Many of you have heard about Marisol Village and other housing projects and initiatives that are in the works. So there's a lot of positive things happening in the area of housing. Statewide, our neighbors were, so again, we were at 33%. The statewide average is 28%. Our neighbors were at 29%, and large regional centers were at 27% and 28% respectively. I'm gonna kick it to Herman real quick.
Thank you, Jennifer. Frog in my throat. Excuse me. Yeah. And I'll address just something I saw in the chat at my other station. This data is available, all the raw data on our website. Posted. We will be sharing the PowerPoint. The PowerPoint does have hyperlinks that will take you directly to the data if you want to do your own deep dive and comparison and look at other measures that weren't discussed due to time constraints. Under the umbrella of satisfaction, this is an important category because the department also allows regional centers to use this as a starting point for performance contract measures as a baseline to see where we want to improve in certain categories. And there is a way to further mine the data to break down what participants' responses were based on demographics, including cultural and ethnicity backgrounds. So this link takes you to the department's website where you can really create your own filters to explore what different categories of individuals, and it can be broken down by age, diagnosis. But for the purpose of performance contract measures, we want to see what levels of satisfaction were for different ethnicities across different years in different survey responses. What we have heard from our community through a series of focus groups, listening sessions, is that people want us to come to them with information. People don't know what they don't know exists. And inviting people to the regional center to join us on our territory or at our meetings doesn't necessarily always work for our community members. So I want to share some of the activities that we've already engaged in that we believe will help us improve these baseline measures of satisfaction for diverse populations. So each regional center has a cultural diversity specialist. Ours, as of late September, is my her. I've seen her. She's on the meeting, but I won't ask her to introduce herself and say hello today. But she's in charge of our service access and equity grant projects that we put forth to the department. And we have 2 currently in progress, one wrapping up the Service Navigator program and a film and media contract to create videos describing, featuring families of diverse populations receiving regional center services. We also, independent, proactively created our very own service access and equity policy. Thank you for approving that. That is posted on our website. We've even had our deaf and hard of hearing specialist, Rima Cornish, translate that in ASL, and that can be viewed on our website as well. I credit Lori with the brain behind this one. We created internally a diversity outreach work group with the intent to create campaigns to promote, honor, and support different activities, events, traditions, cultures. Some of the things that group has identified that we've been able to participate in for outreach. Most recently, the Indigenous Peoples Day celebration in Auburn. Prior to that, during Hispanic Heritage Month, we partnered with La Familia Community Center to get out and host a booth out there. A week from this Saturday, we will be at the Hmong New Year celebration with a booth. And these are all results of identification of this diversity outreach work group that welcomed every regional center staff who wanted to participate to join us and help us to identify opportunities to connect and engage with our community. So we're doing that in full force, happy about that. We also had this year the Language Access Cultural Competency Plan that was described sort of as a gift from the legislature of additional funds infused into the regional center system. Alta's portion of that was targeted to create translation materials and put some energy and resources behind these outreach opportunities. We also have our 1 to 40 caseloads that were policy positions that we hired for that were probably a result of the findings that programs like the Promotora program and that Service Navigator program, where clients of diverse populations can get connected with staff who are able to speak their language and understand their culture. So we have 2 service coordinators serving a Spanish-speaking population, one serving a Hmong caseload, one serving African-American community, one serving Russian speaking clients, and one serving the Indian population. Let's see. Another part of that language access cultural competency budget is hosting listening sessions. So we've identified our Spanish-speaking community. 1,900 of our 28,000 clients are Spanish-speaking, and we've committed to listening sessions to invite members of that community, partners that serve that community, to come share with us what they see as barriers to access of service to help us move the needle forward in improving access and satisfaction for them. So I just wanted to touch on that under the umbrella of satisfaction. It's an important measure, one that we use as a baseline to look at opportunity for improvement and already planned activities that we hope will bring us into the future.
I took yours.
Maybe not.
Hold on.
Let me get my, okay. Yep, I got it. Okay. Choice. So Alta California Regional Center had 11 out of 24 responses where we were above the state average in the area of choice, and just 2 out of 24 where we were below average in choice. The question is, do you choose or pick your staff? 77% responded yes, and 51% in the statewide responded yes. So we're proud of this measure. Again, there's always room for improvement. We see that the 77% responding yes shows that our clients, it appears that they feel like they have options, they have resources as related to their staffing choices, that they're self-determined, that they're making decisions that are best for them and for their lives. Here's a little bit more on choice. This one is interesting. We're below the statewide average in this very bottom section where it says that we had some input. So having some input is still having input, but our clients didn't necessarily shout it out that yes, I made the choice. They're saying they had input. So we're saying that that reflects some input, but we'd like to see that number be a little bit higher there. And, you know, I also was thinking about, you know, making the choice and then having some input and really adding those percentages together. That just shows that there's 86% of involvement, some sort of involvement.
Jen, do you feel that with the intentional focus that we have on person-centered planning and getting our staff up to speed on the ways that they can help to further client choice?
Absolutely, Lori. Yes,
measures. Okay.
Yes, person-centered planning is, you know, that's been something that we've promoted for years. But there's really a push with self-determination program, and I think it's coming to the forefront. So it's even it's emphasized even more so. And those tools, those person-centered planning tools, really help solicit questions and really meaningful answers to questions, and helping our clients identify what's important to them and how they want to move forward in making choices about them, about their lives. I also wanted to make sure I noted this is around who chooses your daily schedule. So we have 2 questions on choice: do you choose or pick your staff? And then do you get to choose what you do with your day? Service coordinator measures, 10 out of 36 who were above the statewide average. And yes, yay, thank you, Rebecca. And just 1 measure where we were below the statewide average. So this is really important. Were you able to choose the services that you get as part of your service plan? 91% of our clients said yes. Statewide average is 76%. It does deserve a round of applause for sure. Thank you. And so just for comparison, our neighbors, Alta was at 91%, our neighbors were at 79%, and our large regional centers were both at 83%. So this is an area where we want to keep this up. We want to keep getting that A grade and keep moving forward and making sure that our clients are feeling like they're involved in their plan, that they're at the center of their plan. And again, that also reflects back to the person-centered planning that Lori just mentioned. There's another section where you're able to choose the services, same question, but this is kind of like the other question around choice. Did you have some input? So ideally, it would be better if we were, help me, Herman,
If I, yeah, so.
So like someone might say, sorry, that, you know,
she wanted you, but now she doesn't.
Take it off back. You know, we have so many respondents who responded that yes, they did have a say, but just having some input is not, it's like an artificial negative, I think is what we, sorry to push you off. So it's, you know, it's just like one of those tricky little nuances. I don't think that data is negative in any way, but, you know, someone looking at it would say, oh, well, the statewide average is, you know, this percentage, and Alta was only 5. So anything else to add on that? I really do want you to say. Okay.
I'll just add myself.
I know. We've talked about it a lot.
In questions where response options were binary, yes or no, it's easy to say one's positive, one's negative. When there are 3 options, and this one in the middle, some input is just kind of mediocre, and it's categorized as being positive, which it's better than no input at all. But we did so well in this positive category with 91% of our respondents saying yes, 100%, that really the only way to get above 17%, to get above the statewide average, would be drawing from our positive bucket. So that's why we categorize this as kind of an artificial inflated negative measure, because we wouldn't want it to be higher than 5%. We want that 4% to go to the 91%, if anything. So
perfectly stated. Thank you. Okay. So these are questions about California. We had 5 out of 30 responses that were above the statewide average, 3 that were below the statewide average. And the question is, do you have access to the technology you need to engage in activities? So we're doing very well in this area. We had 75% of our respondents say yes. Statewide, the average is 68%. And I think, you know, thinking about the other measures around advocacy and being a part of a group in the community, I think that this technology really fits into that, because over these last few years, we've had a lot of meetings in a hybrid or virtual format, and that access to the devices and the technology that is needed has been more, it's been at the forefront. So this is saying, yes, I have a computer, tablet, or other electronic device. A little bit more on California questions. What is the best way for you to receive information from the regional center? So this is interesting, because if you look at the phone and landline, text message, and the WhatsApp messaging app, those are the areas where people receive most of their communication. But if you look at landline, wait, I think what I want to say is that just because landline we were lower than the statewide average doesn't mean we're going to encourage all of our clients to get your landline. That's not how people are receiving information. So we really want to focus on, you know, how do you want to receive the information? Do you want it in the mail? Do you want an email? Do you want a text message? And if you want us to call you, we'll call you. So I think the focus here is really around how can we get the information to you in the way that you want it, not adhering to the data in this example of the landline is the perfect example. I know that probably many of us in this room don't have a landline any longer. So just really focusing on that person-centered approach and how do you want to receive the information. Next, we have some COVID questions. So as Herman mentioned, these surveys were conducted during the pandemic, and I think the results reflect that. We had 14 out of 75 measures where we were above the statewide average and 7 where we were below. One of the questions is thinking about talking to health professionals with video conference or telehealth. Did you like it? This goes back to the technology, which could also tie back to the involvement in the community through advocacy groups and such. We had 73% responded yes. Statewide, 64% responded yes. And our neighbors oh wait, that's the next. I'm going to give a comparison to our neighbors on the next COVID question. During COVID time, did any of these happen? You're responding that maybe you went fewer hours to day program, workshop, or other unpaid day or community activity. So 26% of the respondents at Alta California Regional Center said, yes, that happened to me. Statewide, 18% responded yes. Our neighbors were pretty in line with the statewide average at 19%, and our large regional centers were 15 and 6%. So we talked about, why is it different for our regional center versus others? So we need to think of a number of factors like the rates of positive COVID cases, different shutdowns in different counties, where there was the high transmission rate. That might be different in Sacramento or Yolo County than it was in Butte County or some of our neighboring regional centers where maybe they didn't have as many restrictions as we had in our area. So those are just some of the considerations that we're taking into account with regard to this measure. And that's the last slide. Just want to remind you, please put your comments in the chat. And as Michelle and Herman both said, your input is really important. We want to hear from you. We want you just to kind of pause and reflect on this data. It's a lot. And feel free to take a look at it yourself and ponder it. And we're accepting feedback all the time. We have the NCI feedback at altaregional.org email address. Hi, Michelle.
Hi. Now, as far as increasing the numbers, there's always a possibility that people can come back and raise those numbers. Like, for example, the 8 out of 34 or something, and they could. I don't know how that would happen. Increase the numbers of, because didn't you say it could change?
Yes, we hope that some of the response, we do hope the responses change. We want to see the numbers improve. So we want to be above the statewide average more often.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
So what will the NCI do with this?
So the data is gleaned from the state and then drilled down to individual regional centers. And so as Jen and Herman and Michelle have all three indicated, that this is just a snippet of what is available on the DDS website and what they're referring to as the National Core Indicators Dashboard. Herman had spoken about, you can go onto that and filter across regional centers, compare, Alta California Regional Center to North Bay Regional Center. You could just compare our own data against survey year over year. There's just lots of different ways to break it down. It is voluminous at best. What we attempted to do in bringing forward our first annual presentation was to choose a couple of surveys across a couple of different years and compare to the average of the state across several of the questions. We could do deep dives that could take us weeks to get through. And so we're really kind of taking the temperature right now on, what information is meaningful, what are our takeaways. So when we look at these reports that come to us, per survey across every other year when they're doing them, our teams are looking at what are the outcomes for our regional center across the state, across the United States, so other similar states. For example, for which, by the way, there are none to California, for which we are an entitlement, and we serve any and every individual that comes through our front door that are eligible, whereas other states are putting people onto wait lists and waiting for a vacancy and the numbers that serve on the waiver. So, we have to keep that, we have to be very mindful of that. We have 400,000 individuals in California that are being served, and that number grows every day. And people that come through will get the services that they need. The takeaways for me on the report and looking at these measures they're vast. We are wanting to do the best we can for the people that we serve in every area. And so we want to take an opportunity to drill down in certain sections to see if there are measures that we can create initiatives around that can help to further advance us in outcomes that are positive for the clients that we support, their families. Also working with our provider community and looking at ways to better provide service access. There are many different things that we can do. We take this information and it's intersected really nicely with several other things that we are charged and have the privilege to work with, and that's our performance contract. That is the newly developed regional center performance measures that we'll be working on as well. And at our regional center, we have our strategic plan, which has a variety of different focus areas that also intersect nicely across these measures. And so we want to make sure that we're targeting areas that have the most opportunity to expedite effect positively. So employment is always going to be an area that we want to look at. Choice and access, absolutely. And all the different ways that you break that down. Tonight was just simply an opportunity to take a good first look at how you can manipulate this data and the things that we can do going forward to initiate great projects that will help us to get, like I said, further down the road and supporting our clients and families in the way that they would like to be supported. So when we ask for feedback and we say that this email, this designated email, does not have a date for which it falls off the system. It'll be an email that people can continuously provide us feedback that we're going to be looking at and considering each and every time we come together at our executive team and with our associate directors who honestly have the front door look at the clients that we serve, because they are directly working with managers who work with the service coordinators who in turn are sitting at the table with all of you. So I wanted to thank my team, because I know when I asked them to put this project together that they were like, gosh, where do you even start? And so I applaud them for, just starting from where we are and looking at those measures. I think it's a good place. Again, really would love to lean heavily into our community to take a further look at the dashboard and provide us that information, because we are reliant on you and your perspectives and telling us what it is you need. And so again, I just want to say thank you very much. I'm really proud of our team for bringing it forward.
Thank you.